as the Johnny Manziel documentary came out, Caleb and I have watched it. Have you seen it yet?
I have. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's good. The problem I had with it is that it was supposed to be what the truth or whatever, and then like only the last 10 minutes dealt with his issues. I thought that they could have gone a little bit deeper in that, but that's just me. But they talked about how Johnny Manziel changed the expectations at A&M. He changed the type of money that came into the program.
Hmm. Hmm.
Totally different dudes, but to me, that sounded a lot like what Peyton Manning did to Tennessee. Fair comparison?
We had some really good players before Peyton came, and we've had some really good ones after Peyton came. But I think Peyton Manning's class changed UT, in my opinion, forever. That was the number one recruiting class. You got receivers that were the top receivers in the country that came here. Um, Marcus Nash, Peerless Price being one of the top guys. But the Peyton that he came in my class, the class after. But I think having Peyton Manning on campus changed a lot for UT. You knew you had a guy who was going to be a great quarterback. Had done a lot of good things in his freshman year, and coming in as a recruit. Jamal Lewis talks about it all the time too. He was like, man, his dad was like, Peyton Manning's gonna stay for another year. Hey man, you need to go to Tennessee. You need to go to Tennessee because you got Peyton Manning right in front of you. They're not gonna be able to stack the box with Peyton as your quarterback. It changes a lot of things. We got offensive lineman. Jarvis Rito was the number one offensive lineman in the country. He was a super five or something like that in the country. He was the number one tackle in the country. He came to Tennessee, that same class with Peyton and those guys. Terry Fair came from Arizona. You look at Andy McCullough. He was one of the top receivers. So was Greg Kyler. All these guys came to UT as some of the top players that same class. I think that class is a class that changed Tennessee forever when it comes to like getting to the point of winning SEC championships and national championship. We don't win a national championship without some of those guys that were from that class. I mean, that's those guys are what started that '95 class and that group that was already there. That group changed football at Tennessee forever, in my opinion. It made us tougher. They taught us how to win, and they gave us the culture. You came in as number one class, but you had to follow the rules of everybody else. We got rules in this locker room. We got leadership in this locker room, and you got to wait your turn to be a leader. And I think those things are what helped us get to the point of winning the national championship. But yeah, Peyton Manning coming here absolutely changed it.
So you telling me that, sorry to interrupt, Caleb, but I want to get you in here. Are you telling me that Jamal Lewis probably doesn't come to Tennessee if Peyton Manning goes to the NFL in 97?
He's probably going to Nebraska.
Wow. Pretty darn
That makes
insightful
sense.
right there. Mr. Calhoun?
Fred, it's funny you said one thing about you got to follow the same rules no matter what. Do you think that's something that may have derailed Manziel and Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M in the sense that it was very clear to me from the documentary? They said there's one set of rules for Johnny Manziel and then another set of rules for the rest of the team.
I think it was part of their downfall. I think it's one of the reasons why Kevin Sumlin is no longer there. He's my cousin too, by the way. But
Wow, did not know that.
yeah, he's my cousin.
Like first cousin?
No, he's like my third cousin, but
Gotcha.
he's my cousin. Um, but yeah, I think that was part of the downfall as well because the guys that came behind him couldn't do those things, and even letting him do those things, I think, was part of the reason why he was derailed. You know what I mean? That makes you let a guy do all those things as a freshman and a sophomore, gets to the NFL and gets more money. Man, you can put money in someone's hand; it's gonna make them more what they already are. There was no coming back for him. After I saw that documentary, I realized that I was like, man, I remember having a conversation with someone who was a part of the Browns organization, and I had already heard some of the things about Johnny Manziel and his partying. And the first thing I told him is, if you sign this guy, from what I've been, based on what I've heard about him, you need to sign someone from his team. You need to draft another guy from his team to kind of help keep him in line because he's gonna need that. Of course, they didn't listen to me, and
No. I'm gonna I'm gonna make reference to a story you told me a long time ago. So if I messed this up, let me know. But it was your senior year before the bowl game. You guys
mhm,
already had a national title in your pocket. and you're not really playing for a championship in against Nebraska that year.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys decided to have a pop in the hotel lobby, maybe, and Philip Fulmer came up and said, "I really can't do anything about it now. I don't guess."
They knew all those guys were already gone.
I know. So, I mean, do you recall that story? Because it was
I remember.
there's a comparison in that you guys were established, you guys were superstars, and at some point you can outgrow the discipline.
No, I think that we had never had an opportunity to celebrate New Year's. You know what I mean? Some guys was like, "Man, we're gonna celebrate New Year's this year." Everybody there were leaving anyway. I mean, I was a senior. Some of the other guys were juniors, but they knew they were gone.
Dion.
You know, um, and man, we sat down and had us a drink. What could they do? Like, it
But
wasn't no rule that we couldn't have one, so we did.
true. However, from what you heard, even though you were gone in the NFL, I thought Philip Fulmer let discipline slide a little bit. And that if you were a player, I had one guy tell me, he said, my roommate got kicked out for having 3 failed drug tests for marijuana. I probably had 22, but this guy was a starter and a big time player.
I don't know the answer to that one because I was not a guy who was failing drug tests.
Okay.
That was something I was gonna do. I was not gonna fail a drug test and go home and had to face my mom or embarrass my family. So I don't know who failed or passed. And the guys that I know that failed ended up not being at UT.
But was there, what I'm asking is, did you hear of a mindset and a culture within the program that if you were a true playmaker, you could get away with stuff?
I didn't have that in my locker room that I know
Not
of.
your locker room, but
If
like
it
you were saying.
I wouldn't have known about it because that wasn't my culture and that wasn't the culture of my locker room that I knew of. And every test that I took, I passed. And the guys who I know that got kicked off for failing drug tests, some good football players, some really good football players. And I don't want to name any names. They were superstars in their own right and could have been big time guys. Um, so yeah, I know some guys who got kicked off that were great football players for failing drug tests. So I don't know that, everybody's story is different and maybe he changed after us. I don't know. But I know that when I was in school, there was a few guys that got kicked out of school, and I don't want to say no names because I'm not trying to bring the negative light to them. However, if you go back and you look at some of the top players that got kicked off the squad, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And those guys could have literally changed history at Tennessee. We could have possibly won more than one national championship with those guys being a part of the team.
By the way, everybody has to report to the facility at 2:00. Our off the hook sports test. We got a P test coming up. So
I know I'm gonna pass.
Caleb, are you gonna pass it?
Fred, can I borrow? Never mind.
I know I'm gonna pass. I guarantee you.
I'm just gonna say it is legal where I live, so
Caleb is stoned as a bat right now.
Is this Tennessee? I didn't know it was legal in Tennessee.
I don't live in Tennessee.
Yeah, Caleb's all out there. We got people in 3 states.
Caleb, where are you?
Caleb's up in Maryland.
I'm in the DMV.
Oh, it is legal in DMV. It is.
Yeah, all 3: DC, Maryland, and Virginia. It's legal in all 3.
I'm looking at this the chat over here on the side, and he says there was a tight end that would have been a Pro Bowler, and I definitely agree.
Dustin Moore.
And he was one of the best athletes I ever seen in my life.
Yep.
Still to this day. I never forget the first time I ever saw him catch a pass in 7-on-7. And I watched the tight end, 240 pounds, split the safeties. And I'm talking about safeties, Ray Austin and Torrey Noel, 2 guys who were really good football players and played in the NFL. I watched this guy, 6'4", 240 pounds, catch a post route and split the safeties and not run them to the touchdown. I never seen anything like that before. I never seen a guy that big run that fast. He got kicked off the squad. I'm not gonna say why. You can go back and read those things for yourself. But he is one of the guys that was one of the best players I ever seen. So if there was a double standard, he would have been a guy that you would have had a double standard for.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. He would have been, I'll go ahead and say it. He would have been, help me with this, Caleb. You know history. I think he would have been the best tight end in Tennessee football history. There weren't a lot of great ones. There really weren't as far as productive guys. He would have been a guy that you worked into the game plan, Fred. You made sure to get him the ball.
He was the first tight end I ever saw that big run that fast. He was a 4'4" guy at 600. I mean 6'4", 240 pounds, man. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Now, guys are more athletic now, those type of things. You got those big guys that can run like that now. But back then, he was an anomaly. I had never seen anything like that before. He was one of those guys that I called home about and say, hey, man, I just watched this tight end at 6'4", 240 pounds outrun two safeties. And my uncle was like, that's not possible. I'm like, man, listen, I'm telling you. Then the first football game of that season, we play against UNLV, and we run a tight end reverse, and he scores.
I remember that.
70-some yard pass. I mean, about 70-some yard play. They did call it back for blocking the back or something like that, but he outran their entire defense and secondary 60-something yards for a touchdown. So I'm not the only person that got a chance to see that.
What happened to Dustin, Fred? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on somebody else's issues in their lives or what happened when they go, like whatever. But I know that he's a good friend of mine to this day. I'm still proud of him as being my teammate, and he's always gonna be my teammate. But I know what I saw as far as talent. I still haven't seen anything like him yet.
Yeah.
There's two guys that I take that back. I've seen a lot of great athletes, but there's three guys that I look at and say, man, these are some of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what God was doing when he made them, but it was almost to perfection when it comes to athletic ability. Travis Kozart, Dustin Moore, and Leonard Little. They got out of the bed and they were great. I mean, that was insane. I've never seen anything like those guys ever. I feel like I was a great athlete, but I never seen anything like them before. And I'm still waiting to see something like them. That tells you a lot.
Well, Caleb and I fighting in the backyard is not going to be anything that will inspire you.
Well, Fred, we're talking star power and we're talking fighting. So I just want to know, you got some inside information probably. Who's the one player that fought Peyton Manning in practice?
Nobody.
Nobody fought Peyton?
Manning? Hey, man, that offensive line would have killed you, man.
Did anybody get close to fighting Peyton? Did Peyton ever? Because I know he got in people's faces a lot, didn't he? So
hey, man, the offensive line would be the only people he would have probably got into it with. Ain't nobody on the defensive side of the ball gonna touch Peyton.
Well, he does go at his offensive line. We saw him curse out Saturday when he was mic'd up in the NFL.
I mean, he may have gotten into it with his offensive lineman, but ain't nobody rough him up or nothing like that. That was not going to happen whatsoever because the other offensive lineman would have stopped you. I mean, but yeah, man, listen, when they protected Peyton in the games, they protected him the same way in practices. There was not going to be anybody to touch Peyton. You can't even get close, man. Hey, listen. That offensive line would have wore your tail out. And I'm not talking about just any offensive lineman. I'm talking about some of the best offensive linemen that ever come through Tennessee. Bubba Miller, Jeff Smith, Leslie Ratliff, Jason Lehman, those guys, they weren't playing. They some of the toughest guys I have ever seen.
Yeah. Come on, Caleb. It's not like they had Jeremy Banks on their team.
Listen, we had fights when they were on campus too. I mean, and we gave them their battle. We gave them a run for their money. But I'm going to tell you something. Them boys were bad, man. They were they were bad. They were mean as boy. They were mean. Good. Jason Lehman still scares me to this day. And I ain't no scary person. It takes a lot to scare me. But that guy didn't even talk.
Those are the worst ones, the ones that just don't talk.
He just looked at you. And the look he gave, like, I hope I don't have to fight this big dude here, man.
Fred, you're incredible, my man. Are you at a golf event or what are you doing there in the background?
I am making my way to Tennessee Cider Company. I'm going up there to check out the facilities, man, and go, support our one of our biggest supporters with Celebrate 98, man. I had to come up and do that. I will be playing some golf tomorrow. By the way, if you got some good golf courses out there, man, hey, I'll take an invite anytime you got one. But yeah,
I can take
I
care
want
of
to
you.
come by
I
and
can
check
take
out
care of you.
Knoxville and
I
see
can
my
take care of
city.
you. Yeah, I can take care of you in golf in Chattanooga anytime. Come up.
Oh,
Have
I love to come play. There's a few places I like to play down there.
Yeah, we're getting rid of our kids officially. So that's like 12 days away, I think. So, man, we've got a place to stay and everything for you. So,
Definitely, man.
kind of a big hippie goofy town that doesn't know
And
a
then
lot about.
Fred can lose a fight to Bob Barker on the golf course.
Now I might lose that fight.
He was actually a boxer in the Marines. Did you all know that?
I had no idea.
Bob Barker was a boxer in the Marines, and they pitched that idea to him, and they were embarrassed to pitch the concept of fighting. And he was like, I'm all for it. And the real Bob Barker.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Love
That's
that.
Oh wow. I didn't know that.
Drew Carey just ain't the same. And
No.
but Price is
I
right.
like Bob Barker.
What was the best show when you were sick at home and you could watch anything you wanted to because you weren't going to school that day?
Well, Dave, we couldn't just watch anything we wanted to. If you were gonna stay at home, you had to watch whatever my grandmother was watching, and she was watching God and Light and whatever the stories that were on at the time. I can't remember the guy's name, but Victor Maitland. That's remember his name. All My Children. That's the other one. Yep, that's what you were watching. You were watching some Prices Right too. You watched whatever she was watching. You weren't watching what you wanted to. You couldn't go in the room and watch TV. You're gonna sit here with grandmama and watch it.
Mine was The Price is Right, and I still remember sitting at home sick one day, and a guy kept going. They go, "What's your bid?" And he goes, $4.20, Bob. And then the next time it comes around to him, he goes, $4.20, Bob. And he kept betting. He kept bidding $4.20. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, my mom goes, just don't worry about it. All right.
Well, I'm gonna have to stand in front of God one day and say that mine was Maury, and I laughed at the worst stories when I would watch Maury. I was just falling over laughing at some of those horrible stories. But it's like those are real people's lives, and it's like I'm out here just laughing.
I always felt like Maury couldn't wait for the next commercial break to get a cigarette. He just looked like he needed a cigarette at all times. Fred, Allstate, Google Fred White Allstate, get taken care of. Tennessee Cider Company, use the promo code HAT, and you will get some free swag with great cider. I noticed they had some new flavors. They can ship it just about anywhere in the United States.